One final note from Earth, and the Council knew the galaxy had changed forever. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Assembly Hall stretched toward the artificial sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces pulsing with the soft blue light of contained plasma. Within those towering walls, representatives of 47 species had gathered for what many believed would be a routine session of compliance enforcement. The air recyclers hummed with the familiar efficiency of advanced technology, filtering the varied atmospheric needs of dozens of alien physiologies. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the center of the human delegation platform, her military dress uniform crisp despite the three-day journey from the Sol system. Behind her, Ambassador Marcus Reed and General Patricia Hayes maintained rigid silence, their faces carved from stone. Across the vast amphitheater, alien eyes, compound, multifaceted, burning with inner fire, watched with barely concealed anticipation. The Supreme Arbiter, a towering Vulcan whose crystalline carapace reflected the chamber's ambient light, raised 4 of his 6 arms. His voice, translated through quantum resonance fields, boomed across the assembly. "Delegate Chen of the Terran Alliance," the Arbiter intoned. "You stand before the united species of this galaxy. For the final time, we offer humanity a choice. Integrate your military forces into the Greater Peace Initiative, surrender autonomous control of your stellar territories, and accept supervised colonization quotas. The alternative?" The Arbiter's pause was deliberate, theatrical. Around the chamber, a few species shifted in their seating, membranes fluttering with nervous energy. "The alternative is isolation, complete severance from galactic trade networks, technological exchanges, and diplomatic protection. Your species will face the void alone." Commander Chen's laugh was sharp, cutting through the chamber's artificial atmosphere like a blade through silk. The sound was so unexpected, so alien to the formal protocols of the assembly, that several delegates actually recoiled. "Isolation?" Chen's voice carried without enhancement, trained by years of command to project authority. "You mean freedom?" A ripple of unease swept through the gathered aliens. The Zephyrian delegate, his gaseous form contained within a sophisticated environmental suit, pulsed with agitated colors. "Commander Chen, surely you understand the gravity." "I understand perfectly," Chen interrupted, stepping forward to the edge of her platform. "For 3 centuries, you've treated humanity like a useful pet, smart enough to explore dangerous systems for you, brave enough to fight your proxy wars, but never quite civilized enough to have an equal voice in galactic affairs." Her words rang with bitter truth. Every species in the chamber knew the history. Humanity's first contact had been with Zephyrian scout ships, followed quickly by integration into the lowest tier of galactic society. Humans became the galaxy's expendable workforce, colony pioneers, deep space miners, military contractors for conflicts the civilized species preferred to avoid directly. The Vulcan Arbiter's carapace darkened. "Humanity has benefited immensely from galactic membership. Your technology, your medicine, your understanding of faster-than-light travel, all gifts from more advanced species." "Gifts?" General Hayes stepped forward, her veteran scars visible even through her dress uniform. "We paid for every scrap of technology with human blood. When the Hegemony War erupted in the outer spiral, who did you send to die in those metal coffins you called assault ships? When the Kepler Rebellion needed crushing, whose children bled in your asteroid fields?" The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien protests, clicks, whistles, electromagnetic pulses of outrage. But Chen raised her voice above it all. "We remember Proxima Station. 50,000 human workers told the facility was safe, told the radiation shielding was adequate. You knew it wasn't. You needed that deep space processing plant operational, and human lives were an acceptable cost. The Proxima Station incident was a wound that had never healed. Official investigations had cleared the Galactic Industrial Consortium of negligence, but leaked documents had revealed the truth. The station's designers had cut safety protocols specifically for human workers, calculating that the acceptable loss rate was still cost-effective compared to proper shielding. Ambassador Reed's voice was quiet but carried throughout the chamber. "We remember the Titan Accord, humanity's first attempt at equal representation, shot down in committee without debate. We remember the resource allocation protocols that classified human colonies as expendable assets during the Sector 7 crisis. The Supreme Arbiter's frustration was visible in the rapid color shifts across his carapace. These grievances have been addressed through proper channels. Compensation has been provided. The past cannot... The past, Chen said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper that somehow seemed louder than shouting, is all we have to judge your intentions, and the past tells us exactly what your Greater Peace Initiative really means. She activated a holographic display that materialized above the human platform. Data streams, treaty documents, military deployment orders, all classified material that should have been impossible for humans to access. Force integration of all human military assets under galactic command, mandatory population redistribution to optimize resource allocation, supervised breeding programs to enhance human compatibility with galactic standards. Chen's eyes swept the chamber. You're not offering us membership, you're offering us extinction with extra steps. The Zephyrian delegates' form pulsed deep red. These documents are classified. How did you... You taught us well, General Hayes said with grim satisfaction. 3 centuries of Black Ops missions, intelligence gathering, infiltration techniques. Did you think we wouldn't eventually turn those skills on you? The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. If humanity had penetrated classified Galactic Council security, what else did they know? The Supreme Arbiter's voice carried a note of desperation. Commander Chen, be reasonable. Humanity is a single species. We are 47 united civilizations with combined fleets numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Your defiance serves no purpose but to ensure your own destruction. Chen smiled then, and it was a smile that made several alien species unconsciously activate defensive protocols in their environmental suits. It was the smile of someone who had looked into the abyss and found it wanting. You want to know what we learned during our centuries of service? She gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show stellar cartography data. We learned that your united civilizations are held together by fear and convenience. We learned that most of your fleets are parade units designed for intimidation, not combat. We learned that you've grown soft. The display now showed ship design specifications, tactical analyses, defensive capabilities of various species fleets. The data was comprehensive, detailed, and clearly the result of decades of careful intelligence gathering. The hegemony war, Chen continued. You remember how quickly human tactics turned the tide? Asymmetric warfare, decentralized command structures, adaptive strategy. We won that war for you using principles your rigid hierarchies couldn't even comprehend. A new voice entered the debate. The Cronin representative, a massive creature whose cybernetic implants glowed with internal power, spoke with a voice like grinding metal. Your tactical innovations were useful, yes, but innovation without resources is meaningless. You have no deep space industrial capacity. Your colonies are scattered and lightly defended. Cut off from galactic supply chains, humanity will collapse within a decade. General Hayes laughed, a sound without humor. You really don't understand us at all, do you? You think we've been sitting idle these past 50 years? The holographic display shifted again, revealing orbital installations around Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. Massive industrial complexes, deep space mining operations, defensive platforms bristling with weaponry that looked disturbingly advanced for human technology. We've been preparing, Hayes said simply. Every human colony, every station, every ship. We've been building toward this moment for 2 generations. The implications were staggering. While the Galactic Council had assumed human compliance was assured, humanity had been secretly constructing an independent infrastructure capable of supporting their entire civilization. Ambassador Reed stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in every measured word. We offered partnership. You demanded servitude. We offered cooperation. You demanded submission. We offered our best efforts. You demanded our souls. His voice grew harder with each sentence. Every attempt at reasonable dialogue has been met with ultimatums. Every compromise we offered was treated as weakness. Every success we achieved was claimed as your gift to us. The Supreme Arbiter's carapace had faded to a dull gray, a sign of deep distress among his species. The consequences of this decision will extend far beyond humanity. The galactic order depends on established hierarchies, proven systems of governance. If we allow one species to simply reject council authority, then maybe, Chen interrupted, your order deserves to fall. The words hung in the chamber's recycled atmosphere, like a physical presence. For a moment, the only sounds were the mechanical hums of life support systems and the nervous biological noises of dozens of alien species processing what they had just heard. Then, chaos erupted. The Zephyrian delegates' form flared with agitated color patterns. This is treason! This is madness! You cannot simply walk away from galactic civilization! The Cronin representatives' cybernetics sparked with electromagnetic discharge. Your species lacks the infrastructure for independent survival. You will come crawling back within a solar cycle, begging for readmission. But it was the Vulcan Supreme Arbiter whose response carried the most weight. His voice, when it came, was heavy with the authority of millennia of galactic governance. If this is truly humanity's final decision, then you force our hand. The Greater Peace Initiative will proceed without your participation. Your stellar territories will be redistributed among species capable of responsible stewardship. Your colonies will be offered protection under new management. And your homeworld, the threat was clear, even unspoken. Commander Chen's response was a single word, delivered with the finality of a closing tomb. No. The simplicity of it was devastating. Not defiance, not anger, not desperate bravado, just no. No to your ultimatums, no to your threats, no to your protection, no to your governance, no to your future for humanity. Chen's voice grew stronger with each repetition. We reject your authority. We reject your order. We reject you. She turned to face the entire assembly, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. For 3 centuries, we've heard the same promises. Submit and prosper. Obey and be protected. Conform and be accepted. We've tried it your way. The result has been exploitation, manipulation, and the constant threat of replacement if we ever prove inconvenient. The human delegation began moving toward the chamber's exit, but Chen's voice continued to echo. And we're done asking for permission to exist. We're done begging for scraps of respect. We're done pretending this relationship benefits anyone but you. As they reached the massive doors of the assembly hall, Chen delivered her final words to the galaxy's most powerful beings. You want to know what humanity's greatest strength is? It's not our adaptability, our innovation, or our stubborn refusal to quit. It's our ability to recognize when something is broken beyond repair and build something better from scratch. The doors sealed behind the human delegation with a soft hiss of equalizing atmosphere. In the silence that followed, 46 alien species sat in stunned contemplation of what had just occurred. The Supreme Arbiter's voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper. They actually did it. They actually said no. The journey back to Sol System aboard the human diplomatic vessel Determination was conducted in tense silence. Commander Chen stood in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars streak past as they dropped out of hyperspace for the final jump home. Captain David Torres, the ship's commanding officer, approached with a datapad clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Ma'am, we're receiving priority transmissions from across the galaxy. 17 different species are reporting emergency session calls. The Galactic Stock Exchange has suspended trading, and he hesitated, clearly struggling with the magnitude of what he was about to report. And what, Captain? 11 human colonies in the Outer Rim are reporting contact from non-council species. Offers of trade agreements, technology exchanges, mutual defense pacts. Species we've never even heard of, ma'am. It's like they were waiting for this moment. Chen's reflection in the viewport showed a tired smile. They were, Captain. The galaxy is much larger than the Council wants anyone to believe, and not everyone is happy with their version of order. General Hayes joined them at the viewport, her scarred hands clasped behind her back. Intelligence estimates suggest the Council's reaction will come in phases. First, disbelief, then anger. Then they'll try to make an example of us. Let them try, Ambassador Reed said as he approached. The beauty of saying no is that it forces everyone to show their true colors, including us. Chen nodded. How long until we reach Earth? 6 hours, ma'am, Captain Torres replied. Good. That gives us time to prepare our report for the President and the Joint Chiefs. This isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning of everything. The emergency session of the United Earth Government was held in the deep bunkers beneath Geneva, far from the prying sensors of potential alien surveillance. President Elena Vasquez, a former colony administrator who had seen firsthand the cost of council membership, listened to the delegation's report in grim silence. So they're calling it treason, she said finally. Among other things, Ambassador Reed confirmed, the official term they're using is breach of galactic accord, but yes, they consider our withdrawal an act of rebellion. President Vasquez stood and walked to the secure communication console. Admiral Morrison, are our fleets in position? The holographic image of Fleet Admiral James Morrison materialized above the console. His weathered face bore the marks of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. All defensive fleets are at full readiness, Madam President. The lunar shipyards are operating at maximum capacity. Mars Command reports all orbital platforms armed and operational, and our outer system assets are, let's call them, eager to test their capabilities. General Hayes leaned forward. What about the colonies? Fully integrated into the defense network, Morrison replied. Every human settlement from Proxima Centauri to the Tau Ceti colonies is now operating under unified command protocols. We're not just defending Earth, we're defending humanity. Commander Chen studied the strategic displays showing human fleet positions throughout known space. Admiral, what's your assessment of Council response capabilities? Morrison's smile was predatory. Madam, they've been fighting wars with overwhelming numerical superiority for so long, they've forgotten how to fight smart. Their fleet doctrines are 3 centuries out of date. Their command structures are bureaucratic nightmares. And most importantly, they've never faced an enemy that's been studying them for generations. The weight of that statement settled over the room. Humanity hadn't just been serving the Galactic Council for 3 centuries. They'd been learning, studying, preparing. President Vasquez returned to her seat. What's the timeline for their response? Conservative estimate, Morrison replied. 2 weeks for mobilization, another week for transit to Sol system. They'll come in force expecting quick capitulation. And our response? Morrison's grin was sharp enough to cut steel. We give them a lesson in human ingenuity. The first phase of the Council's response came exactly as predicted. A massive show of force. 300 ships from a dozen species converged on the edge of Sol system, led by the Vulcan dreadnought Absolute Authority. The fleet's composition read like a catalog of the galaxy's most advanced military technologies. Cronin heavy cruisers, Zephyrian stealth frigates, Hegemony battle stations. Supreme Fleet Commander. Vex High, the most decorated military leader in Council history, stood on the bridge of his flagship surveying the tactical displays. The human home system lay before them, seemingly defensively only by a scattered collection of orbital platforms and a few dozen ships that barely qualified as military vessels. Are the humans truly this unprepared? Asked his tactical officer, a young Vulcan whose carapace still bore the bright patterns of inexperience. Vex High's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Hubris, Lieutenant. They believe their defiance alone will protect them. Today they learn the price of rejecting galactic civilization. The Council fleet advanced in perfect formation, their approach calculated to demonstrate overwhelming superiority. Long-range sensors detected minimal defensive activity from the human positions. A few patrol craft, some orbital installations that appeared to be industrial rather than military. As they crossed the system's outer boundary, Vex High opened a general communication channel. Attention, Earth government. You have one opportunity to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Surrender your illegal independence declaration, submit to Council oversight, and your species will be permitted to continue under supervised governance. The response came from an elderly human female whose image appeared on the main screen. Admiral Morrison, according to their intelligence files. Commander Vex, hi, she said calmly. This is Admiral Sarah Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of Terran space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. The audacity of it struck the Council bridge crew speechless. A single human, commanding a handful of primitive vessels, issuing ultimatums to the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Vex High's laughter rumbled through the ship's communication systems. Admiral Morrison, your entire defensive fleet would not challenge a single one of our dreadnoughts. Stand down immediately. Morrison's smile was disturbingly calm. 20 seconds, Commander. This is absurd, Vex High muttered, then opened fleet communications. All ships, advance to optimal firing range. Target Earth's orbital installations. Prepare to demonstrate Council authority. But as the massive fleet moved deeper into Sol's system, strange readings began appearing on their sensors. The asteroid belt, which had seemed empty on long-range scans, was suddenly alive with activity. Metallic signatures, energy readings, movement patterns that suggested... Commander! The tactical officer's voice cracked with alarm. The asteroids! They're not asteroids! The truth revealed itself in a cascade of disasters for the Council fleet. What they had assumed were natural celestial bodies were actually camouflaged human installations. Weapons platforms, missile batteries, fighter bays hidden within carefully hollowed-out asteroids and covered with sophisticated stealth technology. But that was only the beginning. The industrial platforms orbiting Earth suddenly unfolded like deadly flowers, revealing themselves as massive weapon systems. The patrol craft that had seemed so insignificant began broadcasting electronic warfare signals that immediately disrupted Council communications and targeting systems. And from the outer system came something that struck pure terror into every alien heart. The human deep space fleet, emerging from behind gas giants and planetary shadows where they had been waiting in perfect silence. These weren't the primitive vessels the Council expected. These were sleek, deadly craft built with technologies that somehow seemed more advanced than anything in the galactic databases. Ships that moved with predatory grace, bristling with weapons that defied easy classification. Admiral Morrison's voice cut through the chaos on Council communication channels. Commander Vex, hi. You now have 10 seconds to reverse course. This is your final warning. Vex High's pride warred with growing tactical awareness. His fleet was 3 times larger than anything the humans could field, but the tactical situation had shifted dramatically. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress, and they clearly possessed capabilities that Council intelligence had completely failed to identify. All ships, evasive maneuvers, prepare for... The human attack came from everywhere at once. Stealth missiles launched from the disguised asteroid platforms struck the Council fleet's flanks, targeting command ships with devastating precision. Electronic warfare systems jammed communications and corrupted targeting data, and the human ships themselves moved like nothing Council forces had ever encountered, fast, coordinated, seemingly able to predict and counter every tactical maneuver. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations, not because it was long or closely fought, but because it demonstrated the complete obsolescence of traditional galactic warfare doctrine. The Council fleet, designed for overwhelming force projection against static defenses, found itself fighting an enemy that refused to engage on traditional terms. Human ships appeared, struck with devastating effectiveness, and vanished before return fire could be coordinated. The asteroids themselves proved to be mobile weapons platforms, repositioning with small thrusters to maintain optimal firing angles. Within 2 hours, a third of the Council fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder found themselves scattered, their formation broken, their communications compromised, facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Commander Vex High, his flagship listing badly after taking direct hits from weapons that had somehow penetrated military-grade shielding, finally accepted the unthinkable reality. All ships, withdraw. Immediate withdrawal to jump safe distance. But Admiral Morrison's voice followed them even as they retreated. Commander Vex High, you've just learned the first lesson in fighting humans. We don't fight fair. We don't fight predictably, and we don't fight alone. The entire galaxy is watching this transmission. Remember that when you make your report to the Council. The aftermath of the Battle of Sol sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, a Council fleet had been decisively defeated by a single species fighting alone. But more than military failure, it represented the collapse of fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures. In the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions devolved into chaos. Species that had never questioned Council authority suddenly found themselves reconsidering their positions. The hegemony worlds, long resentful of Vulcan dominance, began quietly withdrawing their fleets from Council command. The Zephyrian Trade Union suspended economic cooperation pending policy review. Supreme Arbiter Veltar stood before the remaining loyal delegates, his crystalline carapace dim with exhaustion. "The situation is unprecedented," he admitted. "Humanity has not merely rejected our authority, they have demonstrated the capability to enforce that rejection." The Cronin representative's cybernetics sparked with agitation. "This cannot stand. If one species can successfully defy the Council, others will follow. The entire galactic order will collapse." "Perhaps," came a quiet voice from the chamber's highest tier. "The galactic order deserves to collapse." All eyes turned toward the speaker, Ambassador Tisses of the Kepler Collective, a species that had remained neutral in most Council affairs. Her serpentine form coiled gracefully as she addressed the assembly. "Retain, for 800 years the Council has maintained order through fear and dependency. Species were kept weak, divided, relying on Council technology and protection. But the humans have shown us something different. The possibility of true independence." The Supreme Arbiter's mandibles clicked nervously. "Ambassador Theiss, surely you cannot support this anarchy." "I support the right of any species to determine its own destiny," Theiss replied. "The humans asked for partnership. They were offered slavery. They asked for respect. They were given contempt. They asked for equality. They were promised extinction." Her words carried throughout the chamber with devastating clarity. "Perhaps the question is not whether humanity was right to reject us, but whether we have ever been worthy of acceptance." On Earth, the victory celebration was tempered by sober planning for what would come next. In the deep command bunkers, President Vasquez met with her military and diplomatic leadership to assess the new strategic situation. Intelligence reports suggest at least 7 Council species are reconsidering their allegiances, Ambassador Reed reported. The hegemony worlds are pulling back their fleets, the Tau Collective has opened preliminary communication channels, and we're receiving feelers from a dozen minor species about potential trade agreements. Admiral Morrison nodded grimly. The Council's military advantage was always based on unified command and overwhelming numbers. If that unity breaks down, their individual fleets are actually quite vulnerable. Commander Chen, recently promoted to head of strategic planning, activated a holographic display showing galactic political alignments. The real question is whether this becomes a cascading collapse or whether the Council can reassert control before more species follow our example. President Vasquez studied the display thoughtfully. "What's our assessment of Council response capabilities?" "Limited," Morrison replied. "The Sol battle cost them nearly 200 ships and demonstrated that their tactical doctrines are obsolete. But more importantly, it exposed the fact that they've grown dependent on intimidation rather than actual military capability." General Hayes leaned forward. "The problem is, cornered animals are often the most dangerous. If the Council leadership believes their entire civilization is at stake, they might resort to extreme measures," Chen finished. "Planet killers, bioweapons, total war." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had won the first battle, but declaring independence was one thing. Surviving the consequences was another. President Vasquez stood and walked to the secure communication console. "Get me a priority channel to the Kepler Collective, the hegemony worlds, and any other species showing signs of Council dissent. If we're going to reshape the galaxy, we're going to need allies." The message that went out from Earth 3 days later would later be known as the Terran Doctrine, broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited system in known space. To all species of the galaxy, humanity stands at a crossroads, and so do you. For too long, we have all accepted that strength comes from submission to authority, that progress requires dependency on others' generosity, that peace demands the surrender of freedom. Today, we offer a different path. Humanity extends the hand of partnership, not subordination, to any species willing to stand as equals. We offer trade without tribute, cooperation without control, alliance without subjugation. The old order promised peace through domination. We offer peace through respect. The old order promised prosperity through dependence. We offer prosperity through cooperation. The old order promised protection through submission. We offer protection through mutual defense. To those who choose to join us, we offer the hardest gift of all, responsibility for your own destiny. To those who choose to stand with the Council, we bear no malice, but we will defend ourselves and our allies with every resource at our disposal. And to the Council itself, we say this: your age of absolute authority is ending. How it ends, with transformation or destruction, remains your choice. The response was immediate and dramatic. Within 72 hours, 6 species had formally withdrawn from Council authority. The hegemony worlds declared independence. The Kepler Collective announced a defensive alliance with Earth. 3 minor species requested immediate admission to what media outlets were already calling the Terran Alliance. But perhaps most significantly, the response came from unexpected quarters. Species that had never appeared in galactic politics suddenly revealed themselves. Ancient civilizations that had been hiding at the galaxy's edges, avoiding Council attention for millennia. Technological species that had developed in parallel to galactic civilization. Even rebel factions within Council member species, reaching out for support in their own independence movements. The galaxy, it seemed, had been waiting for someone to say no first. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Independence, humanity's first true deep space exploration vessel. They were en route to the Andromeda contact point, where representatives of the Terran Alliance would meet with delegates from the Outer Rim Confederacy, a collection of species that had never submitted to Council authority. General Hayes joined her at the viewport, both women watching the strange beauty of hyperspace flow past. "Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice?" Hayes asked quietly. Chen considered the question seriously. "Every day. But then I remember what the alternative was. Slow extinction disguised as peaceful integration. The Council hasn't given up, you know. Intelligence reports suggest they're massing a new fleet, twice the size of the first one." "Let them come," Chen replied. "We're not the same species that begged for acceptance 3 centuries ago. We're not even the same species that walked out of their assembly 6 months ago." Hayes nodded. "The colonies are reporting population growth rates not seen since the early expansion period. Industrial output is up 300%, and we're receiving volunteer applications from humans across the galaxy who want to come home." "Home," Chen repeated thoughtfully. "Funny how that word means something different now." Through the viewport, a new star system began to resolve as they approached jump out. In a few hours, they would meet with beings whose existence the Council had kept secret. Species whose technologies and perspectives might change everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. "You know what I realized?" Chen continued. "We spent so long asking for permission to be ourselves that we forgot who we actually were. The Council never saw us as a threat because we never believed we could be one. And now?" Chen smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had looked into the abyss and found it less interesting than the stars beyond. "Now we remember that humans don't ask for permission. We explore, we build, we adapt, we survive." She paused. "And when someone tries to put us in a cage, we break the cage and use the pieces to build something better." As the Independence dropped out of hyperspace into a star system filled with ships from a dozen species humanity had never known existed, Chen's final words carried the weight of prophecy. The Council thought they were rejecting a request for membership. What they actually rejected was their last chance to be part of what comes next. The galaxy had indeed changed forever, and at the center of that change, humanity stood not as supplicants or servants, but as themselves, dangerous, unpredictable, and finally truly free. His end of story.